Nobody likes to lose. It feels awful. But there's one way of losing that might sting the most. To be annihilated. To lose without having scored a single point. In table tennis, this sort of utter humiliation doesn't happen so often. In fact, a player up 10-0 in a game which is first to 11 will actually draw more applause from the crowd by losing the point. Why? Because there's an unwritten code of sportsmanship in the game. You must always mercifully gift your opponent a single point. All who play at the highest level take this rule for granted. That's why Japanese table tennis star Mima Ito caused such an uproar when she refused to follow it, repeatedly crushing her opponents without gifting them the lone point needed to save face. Her controversial decision not only challenged the established norms of her sport, it became the #1 trending topic on one of the world's biggest social media networks, fueled the flames of a long-standing sporting rivalry between East Asian superpowers, and posed the complicated question of what it really means to respect your opponent. While the detractors attribute Mima's decision to cruelty or a lack of manners, her unique backstory suggests otherwise. Once you appreciate the immense dedication which led her to the pinnacle of the sport and the relentless attitude behind her dominance, you'll see why, from her perspective, the choice not to hold back is actually a gift in itself. Table tennis is a global sport, and nowhere is it more popular than in East Asia. But while the passion for the game might be shared across the region, nobody doubts which country is the best at it. The answer is China. The gold medals, they speak for themselves. There's an old joke that goes, the difficulty levels of table tennis can be separated as follows: simple, normal, difficult, and then Chinese. Japan has always lived in the shadow of its westward neighbor in terms of table tennis dominance. No matter how accomplished its brightest stars, they repeatedly fail to stack up against the best Chinese players. But this trend, it couldn't last forever. At least not if Mima Ito had anything to say about it. Born and raised in Shizuoka Prefecture, she started playing table tennis in junior high school and fell in love with it. As a high schooler, she continued to excel, competing in the vaunted Inter-High tournament. However, despite her passion and work ethic, Minori couldn't climb much higher. In all likelihood, she had started too late. Table tennis stands apart from many other sports in that it rewards technique and anticipation rather than pure physical skill. These attributes take years to develop. That's why an experienced 12-year-old can easily wipe the floor with a grown adult. Years later, when Minori found herself pregnant with her first child, a daughter, she resolved to do everything as a mom that she wished her parents had done for her. While expecting, she would routinely watch high-level matches on TV. While doing so, she would hold a toilet paper roll up to her belly and speak into it, hoping to amplify her voice and get through to the yet unborn Mima. Despite directing imaginary coaching pointers to the players on screen, the real audience was her daughter. Once Mima was born, the training didn't take long to start. At the age of 2, Mima first expressed interest in the sport, and an excited Minori took her to the store to buy her first paddle. While most parents would have chosen a smaller toy version for a child so young, Minori didn't hold back. She bought Mima a full-sized one, and cleared out the family's small living room to set up a full table. From the age of 4, Minori would have Mima practice for up to 8 hours per day, with the goal of reaching 1,500 full hours of training each year. Table tennis became a way of life, so much so that the Itos took out a loan in order to build a new, larger home that could comfortably fit Mima's practice table. Every single day, and for each shot, forehand, backhand, etc., Mima was made to string together a rally of 100 consecutive balls. If she missed just one, she would have to start counting again from 0. To become the very best required complete focus. At the end of the day, before a tired Mima slumped off for some well-earned rest, Minori would hug her daughter and tell her that she loved her. But then, Minori would wait deliberately until Mima had entered the lighter REM sleep part of her sleep cycle, to go over and whisper into her daughter's ear, as if to brainwash her. You will be the one to win against the Chinese players. This incongruous mix of harshness and affection characterized the Ito's mother-daughter relationship. For Minori, mother and coach were two distinctly different roles. Once Mima entered elementary school and started playing competitively, she dominated her opponents, many of whom were just starting out. However, after a rare loss, Minori would lecture Mima for 1 to 2 hours about every detail of her failure. Minori sometimes wondered if she was being too harsh, but she had clear principles she wanted to impart in her daughter. These included the idea that suffering and difficulty could be reframed as fun, used as an opportunity to learn. Moreover, Minori made it clear that there was nothing that Mima had to do, and that included table tennis. If she wanted to quit, she could, and at any time. But Mima never wanted to quit. In her elementary school graduation essay, she wrote out her goals in no uncertain terms. I want to appear in the 2016 Olympics. And then in 2020, I want to win both the individual and team competition. Mima spoke it, or in this case wrote it, into reality. Impressive performances on the ITTF tour earned her a top 10 ranking as only a 14-year-old, and she was chosen to represent Japan in the 2016 Rio Olympics. While her goal initially had been just to compete in the Rio Games, Mima performed excellently, becoming a vital contributor in the women's team competition and helping Japan win a bronze medal. She continued to improve after the Olympics, routinely overpowering opponents in singles matches, and her improvement brought with it an abrupt introduction to table tennis's most unusual unwritten rule. In the 2018 All Japan Championships, Mima went up 10-0 in the third game of the final against Miyu Hirano, before committing a service error to bring the score to 10-1. While it's hard to tell if her choice to concede the point was intentional, the crowd seemed to think so, bursting into applause. Nobody quite knows the origin of the so-called zero-point avoidance etiquette. Some suggest it stems from Chinese cultural norms. Others insist it has no logical basis, and simply started as the quirk of a few pro players before growing into a dogmatic norm. What is known is that the behavior emerged in China in the early 2000s, shortly after the ITTF reduced the number of points to win a game from 21 to 11. While winning 21-0 was relatively rare, 11-0 games now entered the realm of possibility. In response, some players began allowing their opponent a point, so that games would end 11-1 instead, perhaps feeling that an 11-0 victory was disrespectful or embarrassing to the opponent. Due to the renown of Chinese players, the etiquette spread across the table tennis world, though few if any recalled the initial reason behind it. Most performed it unthinkingly. Still a teenager, Mima seemed an unlikely candidate to question such an accepted custom. Nonetheless, her first major controversy would come at the Qatar Open in March of 2020, as she shocked the world by knocking off Chinese star Ding Ning. Not only did Mima win convincingly, she won one of the games 11-0, breaking the taboo. In response, she came under fire on social media, and Chinese news outlets honed in on this single game in their coverage of the match. Given the reaction, you might think that Mima had done something horrific. According to the critics, she had no humanity at all, her 11-0 victory demonstrating rudeness and a lack of respect, both for her opponent and the sport. But she was not even the first high-profile player to win a game 11-0 in official play. Fellow Japanese player Ai Fukuhara did so in 2014, accidentally serving an ace while attempting an intentional service fault up 10-0. And even Chinese players had started to break the unwritten rule in more recent years. In fact, Mima's very decision to keep playing hard despite her 10-0 lead drew inspiration from Chinese star Liu Xuen. Asked about her decision in the aftermath, Mima remarked that she had been inspired by Liu's performance in the 2019 World Championships, in which she won several games 11-0. Liu defended her action at the time by saying that, since both players were putting their hearts fully into the match, conceding the point actually would have been disrespectful. Mima seemed to agree. To her, the best way to honor her opponent was not to hold back, to unleash her full ability no matter the scoreline. Doing so fit perfectly with what she had learned from her mother, that brutal defeat could sometimes be the greatest gift a player could receive. It makes you wonder if the criticism for Mima really has to do with the 0-point avoidance etiquette at all. It could just be a case of rival fans looking for an excuse to bash the one who defeated their favorite player. Regardless, Mima may just be the biggest threat to Chinese dominance in table tennis, at least in recent memory, and her prominence is good for the sport. For table tennis to become more popular around the world, it needs stars from around the world. Stars who love the game and play it with full effort and intensity. It seems like even the rival fans are starting to come around. After defeating 17-year-old Ali Mariam from Qatar in the 2022 Asia Cup, winning one of the match's games 11-0, Mima climbed to the #1 trending topic on the Chinese social media platform Weibo. However, in contrast to the previous episode, many came to her defense, arguing that not holding back was in fact the sportsmanlike choice. The 0-point avoidance etiquette is not quite as entrenched as the last several decades might have you believe. The decision to perform it is largely up to the victors. Those who win earn the right to dictate the norms of the sport for future generations. As Mima's play continues to prove, there's nothing wrong with losing, even terribly. For her, delivering such a defeat, it's the ultimate form of respect.